And welcome to the Lions Share, where we talk family, faith, football, finance, and fun. I'm your host, Mitch Lyons. This episode brought to you, as always, by Mitch Lyons Wealth, your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. Today, we have an awesome guest on, former teammate of mine, Jerome "the Bus" Bettis. Jerome, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Mitch.
So we're doing the math here, looking back, and I did my due diligence, looking to see what Jerome's up to the last, I don't know, 25 years or so. And you've gotten married, had a family, all stuff that you weren't doing back in 1999, my last year with the Steelers. So congrats to that, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Actually it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it was right after I transitioned from football. I retired we won the Super Bowl, retired in February, and got married in July. So it went right into a different world, and it really is what I needed because obviously, when you retire, it goes from 100 to 0, and you go from a structured life to absolutely nothing to do. So with that, I transitioned into marriage and kids and raising a family, and
You
and
thought football was busy.
that's right, right. And so my days went from I didn't not much to everything, right? And
Yeah.
so that was a good transition for me, which kept me really busy,
Yeah. I,
and kind of just changed the way I looked at the world.
yeah, for sure. And you had the time to really focus on it, which is good.
That's right.
So. Well, we look back that time. That was a long time ago when I came to the Steelers, 1997. So a year after you had gotten there, coming from the Rams. But let's go back even further. I mean,
Yeah.
you were what you graduated what 89 high school?
1990.
90 from Detroit Mackenzie, a couple years
Yep.
behind me. You're so old, Mackenzie doesn't exist anymore. So that's another
That's right. That's right.
that's another
Doesn't exist.
slap in the face for our aging. But we faced off a few times. 1990, you guys came and ripped our hearts out with a game that will go down in infamy for the ball bouncing off one of our DB's chest, and I'll never forget the announcer saying "pass complete to Adrian Gerald." I'll never forget that because I don't know if you remember that, but we had you guys beat, and Meyer throws up a Hail Mary at the end, and we dropped the interception. You guys score, and I think you probably scored.
In 90, was that at Michigan
That was
State
at
or
Michigan
was
State. Yeah, you guys beat us by like 1 or 2 points on a last second touchdown. I think you scored it
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not. I don't know. But anyway,
I
so
don't I yeah, I don't remember.
I'm
I'm
a
trying
little
to
bitter
I
because
don't
the
know.
next 2 years
I
you
don't know that
blasted
story.
us, so it didn't matter. So anyway, so you guys beat us. So then we go. You're the 10th overall pick, I think, right in '93 draft. I was
Yep.
151st pick, so just behind you. But our paths converge in Pittsburgh. You're 3 years in the Rams, and they decide they're gonna go a little more pass happy offense. And I guess they didn't look at you as a scat back, which was fine for the Steelers because they were happy to get you. So when I came to the Steelers, I knew exactly what I was coming to, which was going to be pound the ball, which I was all about. You were a Michigan State guy, man. You should have come to Michigan State with George Perlis offense, but
They recruited me.
I'm sure they
They
did,
recruited
man.
me
I'm sure
pretty
they
heavy.
did.
Being from Detroit,
Yeah,
um, it was like in their backyard. So they were after me heavily. Um, but it ultimately it was weird because I was an All American linebacker coming out of high school. Well, I'm sorry, I was a two-way All American. So I was an All American fullback. I was the number one fullback in the country. I was the number two linebacker in the country.
right.
But everybody really in the Big Ten wanted me to play linebacker, because nobody really ran the fullback. And so Michigan State, they wanted me at linebacker. And then Michigan wanted me a linebacker, and Ohio State wanted me a linebacker. Penn State wanted me a linebacker. Everybody really in the Big Ten wanted me to play linebacker. And so I knew I was too short to play linebacker. And I was only, my dad was 5'10". I'm 5'11 and 3/4, right? I'm right under 6 foot. And so as a result of that, my high school coach told me that I would be better off playing fullback and not playing linebacker. And I kind of took his words to heart. And so when I made that decision, it knocked out all of the teams that were really close to me: Michigan
Yeah,
State, Michigan, all the schools that were that Big Ten area that
I
they
think
all
that
went away.
I think that probably was the right decision. You
Yeah,
think
it
your high
turned
school
out
coach might have known something. So
well.
yeah, in
Well,
the era
my
back
high
when they
school
had a fullback, right?
Well, and the interesting story, my high school coach, he coached Pepper Johnson, who played at Ohio
Yeah.
State, played
Yep.
for the New York Giants, a
Sure.
bunch of teams, and played in the NFL for 10, 12 years. And Pepper was 6'2", 6'3", and he was like, "Hey, I've coached him. I know what it looks like in the NFL. You're going to be undersized, right?" And at that time, they didn't look at undersized players the same way as they do now. Now, uh, because of Zach Thomas and some other guys, undersized, a 6 foot linebacker is not frowned upon as much
Right.
as he would have been some years ago, right? So for me, I made the right decision at the right time for sure.
Yeah. So, you mentioned your dad's height. Let's go back and talk a little about your family, your folks, right?
Yeah,
I know they had a big impact on your life, and
yeah,
and your dad passed unfortunately due to a heart attack quite a few years ago now. But I've been there, lost my dad and my mom last year, so I know the pain that
yeah.
that comes with. How
Sorry to hear that.
and that was shortly after you won your Super Bowl, right, with the Steelers over the
Yeah.
Seahawks. That had to be, well, I know how it had to be, so, but I'll ask the dumb question. How did that impact you, Jerome? I mean, your parents were so influential on you. You told the story many times about how your dad said, can't give you much, but give you a good name, and you better keep it, right? Keep it a good name.
That's right.
Losing your dad, especially after kind of the peak of your career, obviously winning the Super Bowl. Tell us how that impacted you.
So for me growing up, my mom and dad, they were obviously my rocks. And we were very, very close family. So just to kind of show you how much so, you know, all the way through my entire career, I think my dad maybe he didn't make a lot of the high school games because the high school games started at 3:30 on Fridays in Detroit because we
Yeah,
couldn't play night games
right,
because
right.
of the how dangerous it was and stuff. So
Yeah,
he never really saw those a lot. But then when we got to college, they made every college game except I think three. We played Colorado. We played Air Force at in Colorado uh, Springs, and then we played Hawaii team. I think in
hmm,
Hawaii I don't think they made it. And one other game. And, so what I don't remember it, but they only missed like three games in my
yeah,
college career, and they never missed one game in 13 years of me playing in the NFL. Right,
yeah,
so they were always a consistent part of my life, my entire life growing up. Were very close. Saw mom, dad every week. Right, so it was one of those type of relationships where we spent all of our time as a
mm,
unit, really. And so the blessing was they took the same ride with me on my football journey, right? Because you know, my rookie year, they were there every week. And I was in LA. So they flew from Detroit to LA every single week, right? And so they went through all of these moments with me um, until I got to the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was in Detroit of
right.
all places, right? So
Yep.
now, I the best way I saw I was able to honor mom and dad. We had a big dinner at the house. All of the teammates came before the game, before the game, and so it was just a great moment for them, right? To celebrate them for all the years that they had sacrificed and made it to all of my games, and so then we played in the Super Bowl, and one thing I wanted to do was I got him a suite in the Super Bowl, right? And I'm like, wanted to do it up for him
Yeah.
because this was the end of their journey too, right? I just didn't know it cost so dang much.
It's bad
So
enough regular season, much less Super Bowl.
I mean, I played the game for free. That was like that for real. But they had an incredible time, and I'm glad I was able to do it in hindsight.
Right.
Because I lost my father, shortly after, and it was one of those you never expected. Obviously in a million years. But I was so happy that he got a chance to see me in my finest hour
Yep.
winning the championship, and he was able to be a part of that. So that was the part where you feel good that he was able to see his son have a measure of success to a
Right.
degree, and so that was that was the feel good part of it. But it was devastating, obviously, for me and for the family, and so we had to kind of just pick ourselves up and move on. And it was it's never a day you don't think about dad.
It hits you at
My mom,
the weirdest times too. Sometimes
it
after all these
does.
years, I know. I mean, it's only been a couple years for me, a year and a half since I lost my dad, but I'm sure it probably still happens to you, or just something pops out of the blue, and it's like, man, turn the tears on because it's just like grief is funny, man.
Just this weekend, my son had a high school football game, playoff game, and my mom came in town for it, and my brother, and just I was sitting in the stands, and I'm saying it was kind of chilly and cold. I said, "Man, my dad would love this." I'm just just going
Yeah,
back thinking about those kind of moments. He would love to be right.
yeah,
And so you just all these moments that you know that they would have loved to share and participate in.
yeah.
That's kind of what you miss, and you find yourself thinking of them more and more.
But I find myself too, I've been thinking about that, but then also looking at it as a father, right? I mean, my daughter won a state championship in basketball, 6 months after my dad passed, or not even 3 months after my dad passed. And same thing, man. As soon as the game was over, it hit me like, gosh, I wish she was here, right? And but as a father,
Yes,
our time is short, no matter how long we live. I mean, you only have so many times to impact your kids, and and I know your daughter's up at Notre Dame, your son's heading there next fall.
yeah,
You only get so many opportunities, man, and especially once they go to college, it's like that
yeah.
time is fleeting when you really think about how many times you're going to see your kids. I mean, it's not like when they're K through 12 and you're seeing them every day and you're taking them to school. So for me, it kind of motivates me to make as big an impact as I can. So when I am gone, they're telling pop stories about how I impacted them, right?
That's right. That's right.
Well, yeah, you mentioned the dinner before the Super Bowl. I remember the 1998 Thanksgiving Giving Day game, the coin flip debacle, but we had dinner at your folks' house that day too. I remember the Steelers all rolled
Yes.
in and a house or two, I think. I think the neighbors were involved. I think the whole neighborhood was doing that up to get everybody fed, so that was cool. And then you called Hales or I had Coach Cower on and we were talking about I don't know what you called, man, but it wasn't clearly heads or tails if we're being honest about it.
Yeah, I started with the heads, but I called heads. I had to call heads in the at the beginning of the game,
Yeah.
and then right when at the beginning I was going to say heads again, but then I thought let me change it and go tails for the overtime. So I said tails,
Yeah.
and he heard the and
Yeah.
just assumed it was heads,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
So
yeah.
they win. Barry runs all the way down the field on us, and we lose, and that pretty much
And
imploded
coach
our
fires
season.
me from the kickoff. I mean, from the coin toss. I never call another coin toss again. I'm fired.
Well, they also invoked the Bettis rule after that, where you had to call it before they ever flipped it, starting the next week, I
That's
think,
right.
right? I think they
That's
changed
right.
that quick.
They did.
But well, okay. So you leave the NFL. Let's talk a little bit of business. So when you obviously start having a kid, you start having kids, and you're married, and but where's life taking you since? I know you're very involved. You got your foundation, the Bus Stop Share Foundation, which has done a lot of good in Pittsburgh and Detroit. What other things you're involved in? I know you got a couple entities out there you've done.
Yeah. So right after football, I started to do some television work, and really focused on. Um, I did a television show in Pittsburgh that this year is the 19th year of the Jerome Bettis show in Pittsburgh. I still fly to Pittsburgh every week during the football season
Yeah.
to do the show. So that I was doing that, and then I also was doing the studio show for Sunday Night Football, and that was fun. It was great. I then transitioned from there to ESPN. Was with ESPN for some years, and then there was an opportunity to do some more television. NFL Network was interested, and everybody. And so what I had to make a decision though at that point. My son, I think, was about 8, and I said to myself, I had children later so that I
Mhm.
could be in the home and I can impact their life growing up. And to that point, I was on the road, you know, 4 days, 3.5 days a week, right? Because I would fly into Pittsburgh maybe Friday morning and then not get home until Monday, right? So I was saying to myself, I'm missing all of the, his baseball games and all
Yeah.
the basketball. I'm missing all of these activities that he's doing, right? And I'm coaching them, but I can only coach during the week games. And so I'm saying to myself, this isn't it. So I stopped doing all the television so that I could focus at home. And from that point, I was pretty much home. Now, obviously, I still had other commitments, but a large chunk of that, every week thing kind of went
Right.
away, and the commitment there to be there for my son and raise him to be the young man that he is. That was the priority
Yeah.
for me. So that changed. But then I was also involved from a business standpoint. I wasn't heavily involved in business at that particular point. And then got involved in a staffing company in Michigan, and then transitioned to a partner with another a staffing company, and now have a bigger staffing company that I'm a part owner in, and that's called MBC Staffing. And so we do light industrial, that kind of thing. So that was that was part of it. Now, I was always doing the endorsement stuff and brand ambassador, things like that. So
Sure.
that had always continued on. So I was always involved from that standpoint. But then some other opportunities presented itself. A development company doing some development work in Detroit. That came alive and became an opportunity. And
Were you actively involved in those, or are you actively involved day to day?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
So
actively
for our
involved
listeners
in.
out there or people watching this, I guess share with us, I guess, in your background in football, some of the characteristics and traits you picked up from football. How has that impacted your
Yeah,
ability to run a business?
great question. Well, what I've learned in football is one, you develop your leadership skills. Obviously, you're in the locker room with 50 other men, and you've got to influence and impact them, and so you learn how to talk, when to talk, what to say, what not to say, when to put an arm around a guy, when to you know tap on his helmet, so it really enhanced my leadership skills from that standpoint, but also showed me how you manage a team, right? How you develop a team, how you get everybody to buy into the team concept. Because what I found early my career in Pittsburgh, and then later in my career, I found what worked and what didn't work. And what was happening a lot of times earlier in my career, a lot of guys got real very cliquey in the locker room. And what I found when we won a championship, we were very much a very close group, not just the clickies, but all of the guys
Yeah.
would come together and do different stuff. And we made a concerted effort to keep everybody involved, right? And everybody participating in the collective. And so I understand that concept, right?
Yeah.
And then you also you learn that you have to be in the building. You have to be there. You got to be visible. You got to, because nobody's going to work as hard as you. But I will say this: you've never seen a leader lead from behind, right? You've never seen a leader lead and say, "Hey, go in there, burning building."
You guys
No,
go first.
right. That doesn't work, right? When they see you go in there, they go right behind you, right? And
Yeah.
they're gonna go 100 miles an hour right behind you, but you got to be willing to do the work, right? And so that's what I found, and that's what I've kind of taken with me in business, is that if you don't show that you're 100% committed, you can't expect someone else to be 100% committed.
Yeah, I always and when I was talking with Bill Cowher a few weeks back, his thing was always talking about the mindset, right? You got to have the mindset, and he actually told a funny story about he's talking about we're out, we're not practicing in the bubble because we're not playing in the bubble. He goes, and then we're out there standing, and I'm jumping up and down, and Jerome says, well, if you're not cold, coach, why are you jumping up and down? He goes, I'm working on my mindset. I'm working on my mindset. So, but he always this one always stuck with me too. Where he would say, I'm going to treat you all fairly, but I'm not going to treat you all the same, right? And everybody's a little different, right? When you're dealing with personalities on a team or in an organization,
Absolutely.
you got to treat them all a little different because somebody needs that pat on the back, and other guys need a kick in the butt, right?
That's right. That's right. And you got to know who needs what, right? As a leader, you got to kind of figure that part out, right? And so
Yeah.
that was, that's a big part of the process as well, really big.
Yeah, well, great. Well, all right. So let's talk a little football here. I mean, obviously, people are well familiar with you, and let me just ask you this because you're my third Hall of Famer on the lion's share now. I had Dermontti Dawson, Coach Cowher, and now you. You get elected and put in the Hall of Fame in 2015. Jerome, what did that mean to you? I mean, as a kid growing up in Detroit, having dreams, we all had the dreams of playing pro football and whatnot. For me, I mean, it was never, oh, I'm gonna make the Hall of Fame. It was just play pro football, right? But to take that to the next step where, man, you're getting inducted in with all the greats that you grew up worshiping, right? What did that mean to you?
Well, let me give you a funny story about that. As a kid, I never grew up wanting to play football. I didn't play football, and people don't want to know this. I didn't play football until high school.
Okay.
I was a bowler.
I
So
knew
I
that. I was getting to
bowled, right? I
that.
bowled from like 5, 6 years old up until I was 14. The only reason I stopped bowling was at a young age, I was very thoughtful in my future, right? And I had an older brother, older sister. And I knew financially we couldn't really afford a whole lot. And so for them to go off to college, I knew my turn was going to be a weak opportunity because they would already have they would be in school and finishing up school, and there wouldn't be any money for me, right?
They'd already siphoned off
Right, all
the
the cash,
tank.
right? So I'm saying to myself, how can I get to college? Uh, and so I thought football would be a great tool to for me to get to college. And
Yeah.
that was it, right? So when I played my freshman year, I played with the thought that I'm going to college to play football. I want to get a scholarship somewhere.
Hmm.
So my freshman year, I played linebacker. My sophomore year, I played tight end and nose guard. All right. My junior year is the first time I ever played running back. I played fullback and linebacker. And my senior year, I played fullback and linebacker, right? And so it kind of happens out of nowhere because I don't play running back until my junior year. And that
Yeah.
first year had huge success. And then at linebacker had huge success. And then so in 1 year, I go from playing the position to now being All American, right? So it happened so fast. So then when I got to college, I was like, yes, I made it, Notre Dame. And the goal was I wanted to be an electrical engineer. So it wasn't, I'm going to the NFL from here. No thought. And that's part of why I went to Notre Dame because I wanted the educational side is bigger more than the football side because I figured a degree from Notre Dame that's going to be big, and so that's kind of how this thing all happened. And then I have success early on there, and then they say, "Are you going to petition to go to the NFL after my sophomore year at Notre Dame?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not even thinking. No, I don't. I'm not. No." So then after them saying that my sophomore year, then I have a really good junior year. Then they say, hey, you gotta go, right? And
Yeah.
so then I saw the opportunity from my mom and parents, my dad. So it was never, my goal was never, you know, I didn't even know about the Hall of Fame, didn't even consider
Right.
it.
Right.
So my goal was to get to the NFL, play 3 to 5 years, right? Save some cash and then, go off and do some
Yeah.
other things. So that was my thought, right? Because at first I'm thinking I'm gonna play fullback. Fullbacks don't have long careers, yada yada yada, right? So things start changing, and then I run a 4.52 at 255 pounds, and they're like, "Oh man, we might can play you a
That might
tailback." I'm
be a
like, okay,
tailback.
right. Yeah. And then I saw how much fullback make, how much tailback make. I said, yeah, I can play tailback. And so then, and now like people ask me all the time, which ring is more important, your Super Bowl ring or your Hall of Fame ring? And I tell them without a doubt, Super Bowl ring, because every year my goal was to be the best version of myself so that we can win a championship, right? And it took every year, right? I didn't win into my last year. So every year I was trying to reinvent myself, become a better version of myself so that I can get to this championship. The byproduct of all of that hard work ultimately became the Hall of Fame. So when I got into the Hall of Fame, it really wasn't until then that it really hit me how significant it was, right? Because here I am, and I'll never forget it. When I was announced that year, we were in Arizona, I believe, and they bring you in after you get announced. They bring you in and they interview, for the interviews. Jim Brown comes up to me and said, "We're all equal now," and I was just like, "Wow, Jim Brown." First of
Yeah.
all, he said, "We equal. We not equal. You the best running back ever, right?" But he was just kind of saying about we're all teammates now, right? And it was just a special moment when you realize the significance and the gravity of what I had been honored with, right? That they felt my career was such that it it will live in history, and I will be considered with these men, great men,
Yeah.
right, that played this game and made the game what it is, right? And so that was awe inspiring and amazing. And for me, I couldn't think but anybody except my family and the friends and the people really who had gotten me there, right?
Right.
So that's why, like in my speech, I kind of went through my football life and wanted to thank everybody who really made a large impact in my life because it was really them. I that was never my goal. So those people really did a number on impacting and molding and sculpting my football life because my journey initially didn't start as that is the end goal, right? And then I saw an opportunity to use it to influence and inspire my children, right, who were little kids at the time. So I wanted to use it to do a little bit more because for me, it was never about me, and it was always about the opportunity and what I could do with it, and how I could open doors,
Yeah.
and do more for others. So it was always a special time.
I mean, and the game of football is all about being more than yourself, right? Bigger than yourself, and the joy of winning. Or people always ask, what do you miss about football, man? It's not even Sundays, right? It's just the camaraderie, it's the locker room, it's the busting on guys in the locker room and stuff. I always say, you can play golf the rest of your life, but you really can't simulate the that NFL locker room on the golf course or in the
No,
clubhouse. It's just not the same. But
no,
and I would think, going to the Hall of Fame, same thing, right? It's a culmination of all the people that have poured into you over your lifetime. I know you recognize Coach Holtz there, and obviously your family and all that. But the cool thing going forward, JB, and I'm sure you've experienced this in the 10 year since, is being able to go back to those ceremonies and be the Jim Brown for the next guy coming in, right?
that's right. That's
Because all
right.
of them are thinking the same thing. Jerome Bettis is saying I'm on the same team with him. What? I mean, that's cool, man. And it's cool for me, just even to to say that I rubbed shoulders with you for a few years, and got a few blocks here and there. But it's cool to see it happen to people that deserve it, man. Because I mean, you of anybody, I mean, you sacrificed a lot, right, on your body, the way you ran, right? And I saw you in there at halftime getting your asthma treatments every game, getting the inhaler and the mask and. I mean, just you were a warrior, man. And so after 13 years, and not to mention college and high school, how's your body feeling as a 52-year-old?
Is relative. I say I'm 60 in dog years, because it's one of those. My years just kind of sped up because of the profession that I chose.
Yeah.
But physically, it's relative. I mean, you think 13 years in the NFL, how your body going to feel? It's not going to feel great, right? But I'm fortunate where I'm still, I'm able to do everything I want to do, play golf and do all this kind of stuff. Now, does it hurt? Yeah, at times, both the knees are hurting. I mean, I'm probably going to have to get my right knee replaced in another year or two, because it's starting to get a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit worse. But other than that, it's not all bad. That's
Yeah.
kind of the way I
Well,
look.
and I always say, I mean, I blew my knee out pretty significantly in my last play with the Steelers, and I remember Dr. Bradley saying, "Hey, we don't really see this kind of thing other than car accidents because I had torn my PCL in addition to my ACL and MCL."
Oh,
He goes, "That's more of a car accident injury," and he told me my LCL was intact. I go, "Doc, I didn't even know I had an LCL. What's that?" So that's when he advised me, "Hey, you're 29. You got a good family. You're pretty healthy. I'd hang it up if I were you." So I had to kind of already decided if I tore another knee because I'd already torn one in '97. But yeah, I mean, but my point is who knows? If you never played football, maybe you had been in that car wreck, and you might be banged up. Anyway, you never know where life takes you, and
that's
God,
right.
what God has in store for you. So, and I will say that, you and I both, we've got plenty of teammates that haven't made it this long, right? I always say
Yeah,
that, I think of Tim Lester, your fullback for a lot of
that's
years,
right.
man, and Timmy passed tragically, too early, as have a lot of former teammates, right? And
Right.
so every day is a blessing. So.
It really is.
So going back to a little bit of fun, I know you like to golf now. Are you still ripping it on the lanes? I know you were a big bowler. How many?
Not as much as I used to. Obviously, physically, that bowling is a little bit more challenging. You got to slide,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and you putting
Got to
pressure
bend
on your
that
knees,
knee.
so you got to bend up. Yeah, that's the hard part. So not as much,
Yeah.
but Mookie Betts is a big bowler, and so he's asked me to come down. He's got a big tournament coming up in Nashville in December, beginning of December. So I'm going to go down and support him and help him. So I'll kind of
You got to
get
get it
get
dialed in
ready.
prior to that. You got to
Yeah, I'll
represent.
try to dial in a little bit. Just get some
So how many career 300 games? Because I know you like to trumpet that back in the day.
I got one 300 game. I got a two bunch of I got a one 300, one 299, bunch of 279s. But it's one of those that was my goal.
Yeah.
Coming up, and once I was 25 when I bowled it. So the ball is in my office, and it's like that's like a Super Bowl trophy.
Any hole in ones?
I got one hole in one,
Nice.
and that was cool too. So um,
I would
it,
think
it
the
was
300 would be more satisfying than the hole in one because there's
much more satisfying.
you've
Much
got to
more
you've got to do
satisfying.
that for 10 frames versus one lucky
That's
shot that
right,
rolls in a
right.
hole.
And you got pressure mounting.
Yeah, the
You know,
whole the
after,
whole uh
after you
the,
get
the whole
past
bowling alley's
seven,
watching you.
right? After you get past seven, it's like, could he? Could he?
The,
So
the crowd starts gathering. Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, listen, Jerome, I really appreciate you coming on. The last question I'll ask, and I think I know the answer, but I'll ask it
Yeah.
anyway. Me looking back on it, man, was there anything you would have done different, or not regrets, but anything in life, whether it's football, parenting, anything out there that maybe if you wish you could have a do-over on?
The only thing I would love to have a do over on is saving more money. You never know. You never know how much money that you uh, wasted really on just bad decisions. Whether it's I bought this car, oh I didn't like it, I did this, I didn't did
Yeah,
this, I did that, and just the because of what we did for a living, we came into a lot of capital at an early age without a lot of knowledge and experience, right?
right.
And so, if you had an opportunity to do it again, do it over again, yes, you would love to. Now, I'm not saying that. No, I'm very fortunate to have did what I've done and made the money that I made. But in retrospect, if there was
Yeah,
one thing you say, hey, I'd put that in annuity. I'd do this. I'd do
yeah,
so many different
yeah.
things um, uh, in retrospect.
Well, with my career now, Mitch Lyons Wealth, we're catching people on the other end, right? They're heading into retirement. But I appreciate your humility in saying that because I think that's something the younger generation that are watching or listening to this take heart, man. Take it to heart. You don't need all those fancy things because at the end of the day, it's just stuff, right? And you have to have a little fun in life, but it's good to save some for the future as well. So appreciate you sharing that. So Jerome, man, it's great to see you, buddy, and I appreciate you coming on the Lion's Share. Anything you'd like to sign off with for the? Oh, let me get you this because I
Yeah,
do have to ask you this. Being a Detroit boy, I know the
yeah,
Steelers are doing well, and they're all Steeler. The Yinzers are fired up about what's going on down there. But let's go back to Detroit because I'm sure maybe you weren't a football fan, but you were aware of the Lions and Barry Sanders back in the day and all that. The Lions, man, what do you have to say about what they're doing? And I mean, I gotta think they're the heavy favorite at this point to win it all. Not, there's a long way to go yet, but that
yeah.
offense is and team all around is looking incredible.
What I would say is, growing up, I was not a Detroit Lions fan because they didn't win, right?
Exactly.
And so it was always frustrating that they would always rip your heart out when you start getting behind them, and then they pull the rug from under you, right, and kind of fall back into that same place. So I will say this: I am so happy for the Lions and for the city of
Maybe.
Detroit. I mean, they have been behind this team
Yeah.
year after year after
They
year.
filled that stadium for years when they didn't probably shouldn't have been.
They definitely shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Definitely shouldn't have been. Right. So I'm just so happy that they have a team that really mirrors the city.
Mhm.
They're
Grit.
hard nosed, physical, tough. They're not. It's not sexy, although they can.
It's pretty
You know,
sexy on offense.
they yeah they can be sexy, but they are
Yeah,
the
I hear
basis
what you're
of their
saying.
team is offensive line, running the football. Everything works off of that,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of the what the city has become. The city was really blue collar. Now the city is changing. Now you got a lot of investment in the city. The city
Yeah.
is becoming more beautiful in downtowns. You still got some of the rougher areas that still need that development. So
Yeah.
it's coming along, and I'm just happy to see that the Lions are relevant
Yeah.
and they're kicking butt. So
And, and
I'm
it's
very proud.
and it's culture, right? I mean, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, the GM. I mean, they've changed the culture in a relatively short period of time. I mean,
That's right.
4 years ago they were starting that thing off, and I think they were 0-8 and 0-9 that first year, and then they got it turned around. Won a few games that year, but the next year kind of start off rough again. Then they get a winning record. Now last year, and I think this year. I do a little weekly segment on the podcast too, Lions on Lions, and I said this morning, I said. What can you say anymore, man? This offense is just unbelievable. The defense seems to be getting better every week, and it's a fun offense to watch with these running backs. They are just an incredible 1-2 punch, and then all the play action stuff you can run off of that. I mean, it really opens it up for them. So
Yeah, I remember the year that they finished the year like 8-8, and they beat the Green Bay Packers
nine
in the
nine and
last
eight.
game of the
That
year,
was for 17
9-8
game
that year.
season. Yeah,
And that was the turning point where you could see that they were on to something,
yeah,
and that the locker room actually believed that
yeah,
they could be better than they were, right? And so
yeah.
then you saw them that next year, which was what last year, they just took it to the moon. And this year, now you have to. I tell people all the time, you have to learn how to win, and they had to learn how to win because they beat themselves, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you're a young team and you don't know how to win. You make the mistakes that cost you the game, right?
Right.
And so now, having been in those high pressure moments, been in those situations, they know what not to do, right? And then now you force your opponent to be
Perfect. Darn
perfect,
near perfect.
right?
Yeah.
And that was the greatness of the Patriots all the years they won. They weren't the best team, but they didn't make any of the mistakes that you make that lose you games. So
Yeah.
they said, if you're going to beat us, you got to beat us with a perfect game. And really, not many teams were able to do that. and play that mistake-free football. And so
Yeah.
that's what is fun to see with the Lions.
And it's it's just talk about a tale of two games. I mean, the week before they play probably their worst game. They're turning the ball over left and right, and yet the whole time I'm thinking they're still in this. They're still in it, even though they've turned the ball over. Goff's got 5 picks. They're still in it, and they come back and they rip the hearts out of the Texans. And then this week I said there is no way that they're not blowing the Jaguars out. They're coming in. It's a defeated team. They got their backup quarterback in, and the offense isn't feeling good about itself from last week, from the
That's right.
Lions standpoint. I knew they were going to come out and roll them. So yeah, that's a great. Well, Lions fans are fired up, and I appreciate you weighing in on that. But Jerome, it's great to see you, buddy, and God bless you and your family. I know your son's heading up there to Notre Dame next fall. I wish him luck. Is he still alive in the playoffs in Georgia?
Yeah, yeah.
All
So
right.
they just had a playoff game this last week. It was a close one. They won with like 17 seconds left.
Oh,
They scored a touchdown and won by 1 point.
your son had a
So
catch, right? Touchdown, I mean.
yeah, so he had 2 touchdowns,
I saw
maybe
you pick.
close to
I
100
saw
yards.
your picture you threw up on LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
proud pop. I love it, man. Well, enjoy that
exactly.
ride, and then good luck to everything, and thanks for coming on, bud.
Thank you. Appreciate
All
you,
right,
Mitch.
see you.
Take care.